Hi there, I'm Kathy Barker from Software Solutions, and we're looking at transforming data using Power Query in Power BI. I now want to have a look at some of the number functions that come with Power Query. Now, we have noticed in previous videos that when we go to the Transform tab, there's a group of functions like Statistics, Standard, and Scientific that also appear on the Add Columns tab, Statistics, Standard, and Scientific. And that is because you need to think about whether I want to add a column that calculates a certain value or transform and replace a column with a certain value. Okay, let me show you how some of these functions work. I'm going to go to orders 1997 to 2000. When I scroll to the right, we created a column called gross in an earlier video. I'm going to select gross, and if I go to transform, I'll be able to move it to the end and make a visual connection between the values in the gross column and some of the functions that we're going to look at. Now I want to add a column, so I choose add column in the ribbon, and let's start with maybe rounding. When I choose the rounding button, I have the option to round up, round down, or round. If I round up, for example, what happens is my 68.75 is rounded up to 69, and my 16.5 is rounded up to 17. So we have a round up option. Even my 61.25 is rounded up to 62. But if I delete that step, select the gross column, go back to rounding and say I want to round down, then of course it rounds down. So 16.5 has gone down to 16, and if we look here, 78.75 has gone down to 78. So irrespective of the decimal points, it rounds down. But if I want to have a little bit of a say as to how many decimal places I want to round to, let me delete that step, choose the gross column, and go for the rounding button and the round option. If I go for the round option, I can say how many decimal places I want to round to. So let's say I just want to see one decimal place, and OK. And so what I've got now is a column to the right of my gross just called round, which is rounded to one decimal place. So 61.25 has become 61.2, and 52.5 is just 52.5. So we can round to one decimal place. 68.75 is 68.8. So that's your rounding button. Let's look at some of the other functions. What about information? If I hit the information button, what I can choose is odd, is even, or sign. If I choose is even, then a column is created with a true or false. And it's basically telling me if it is an even number or if it is an odd number. If it is even, then the number true, the value true will show. But if it's not even, such as 175, then the value false will show. So is even, true or false, is odd, true or false. And I'm just going to delete that. Whereas if I choose the gross column and go back to information and say, look, give me the sign, that will simply give me a column that will tell me whether that's a positive or negative value. If I rest on that option, it basically says, contains a sign, well, if it says true, it's a positive value. If it says false, it's a negative value. So, if it says 1, it's a positive value. If it says 0, then it's a negative value. So that's how sign works. And I'm just going to delete that particular step. All right, so that's information. If you're a person who understands trigonometry into statistics, trigonometry will just give you the sine, the cosine, the tangent, or the arcsine, arccosine, or arctangent of that value. So if I ask for the tangent of that value, for example, there is the tangent of that value. If you're not into trigonometry, that won't make a lot of sense. So I'm just going to delete that. But you have trigonometry options in that group there. The other option you have is you have the option of scientific. So if I go for scientific, I can ask for the square root of that value, or I can ask for the power of that value, squared, cubed, or the power of 10, whatever power I choose. I could ask for the absolute value, which just gives me a positive version of whatever value is in that cell. I can also ask for the logarithm, base 10 or natural, and I can do factorials as well, or even exponents. So you've got all these sort of scientific calculations that you can apply to this column and generate a new column because we're in the Add Columns tab. The other option you've got is standard. If we go to standard, I can simply add whatever value is in that cell to a certain standard value, or multiply or subtract or divide or find the modulo, which is the remainder, or give me a percentage or a percentage of. So for example, if I wanted to multiply it by 15%, then I would just simply 115% and OK, and it's multiplied that value by 115%, giving me, for example, the GST on top of that value. So those are the types of standard that you can ask for. If I delete that step and choose the gross column, and I now head to say transform, just to be different. We've got here statistics. So I can ask for sum. I can ask for the minimum, the smallest, the largest, the median, the average, the standard deviation, count the number of values or count the number of distinct values. So if I went sum, for example, it would just total up all the gross values and give me that answer. But I can just as easily turn around and delete that step and I'm back to where I was. So we can use statistical functions when we have a column, but it will transform because it's going to replace the table with an aggregate value of your choice. And that's why we don't see it in the add column option here. It's out of sync. So I hope that clarifies a lot of the functions that you are given with Power Query. Come back for the next video.